there was a time that we were like sleep deprived because my self-care routines during that time were getting interrupted. I wasn't able to go on my morning walks. There was nights that I was staying up really late to read the paperwork because you're reading so much paperwork, signing paperworks, gathering all your information so that you could send it over to get it approved for a mortgage. Plus, I had my 2 kids in school. It's the end of the school year. They're trying to do like their holiday celebration, so practicing with them. And so I was so sleep deprived. Husband was sleep deprived, stress was high, and there was a point where we got into a fight and I was like, I don't even want this house anymore.
So a lot of people will know you from our previous podcast episode, for which was number 12, Soledad Talks Finance and Wealth with the Community. So if people want to listen and just explore a little more about your story and your upbringing, they can go and listen to that. That's episode number 12. Just more details about how you came to where you are today, because oh my God, has it
Well, it's
been
different.
has it been a while, and you have done so much in such little time. How did you
Yeah.
manage all that, first of all?
When we first talked, it was 2020.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so in 5 years, the glow up has been real, mi gente,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like my personal finances, in terms of my healing journey, in terms of my marriage, in building a business. Yeah, the glow up has been real. And I
Yeah.
would say if I had to give you like a one little sentence of
Yeah, yeah,
how
yeah.
it happened,
Mm-hmm.
it was definitely by choosing intentionally to stay in a wealth building cycle. And I consider the wealth building cycle to consist of 4 parts. One, the knowing your numbers, so checking in with my finances on a regular basis, nurturing a positive money mindset where I'm like being very aware of my thoughts and my beliefs about me and money. 3, developing my financial literacy. Like that never goes away. If you want to
Mm-hmm.
keep making money, you're always going to have to develop your financial literacy. And 4, being focused on increasing my income. And so that like is like the cycle. If you can do those 4 things consistently, you are going to build wealth. But what has kept me in building in that cycle, right? What has made it possible despite lifing is really being intentional about engaging in the 7 types of self-care.
I love that. And I mean, tell us a little bit more, just a brief, just how, like what you do and how you would describe what you do now, maybe even like versus what you were doing back then. How has that like evolved?
Yeah, so in 2020, I had paid off all of our student loan debt. And I had started posting on Instagram our journey to save $30,000, which would have been our 6 month emergency fund. I didn't think
Yeah.
that was possible. And then as I reached that goal, I was like, okay, how do we open up Roth IRA accounts and start investing? And then how do we max out our retirement accounts? That's where I was in 2020. If we like go to now, I'm personally, I have a business now. So I have Wealth para
Okay.
Todos LLC, and it's a money and self-care coaching business where I'm helping clients also be in the wealth building cycle. But then my finances have also changed so much, right? I
Mm-hmm.
went from renting from a loved one to
That's
now owning
right.
my own
Yeah.
house in LA.
Mm-hmm.
I grew my business, and my business has consistently been able to bring in 6 figures in revenue, which is like a huge thing because less than
Wow, that's
6% of women
huge.
are able to do that.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Yeah, clap
Uh-huh.
it up because that's amazing. That's amazing.
And as soon as I started my coaching program, I
Oof.
was able to do that.
Wow.
And I mean, we're homeowners, we're maxing our retirement
Mm-hmm.
accounts. Now we're on track to become work optional at 47. I don't even think when I was talking to you, when I talked to you last, had I even started to be like, oh, yeah, I want to follow a financial plan that puts me on track to retire early.
Yeah,
And,
I remember you mentioned it because it was
okay.
I think you were on the was it the fire journey,
Okay.
right? I
Okay, so I
think
had already discovered the
y-
fire journey.
that's what it was.
Okay.
Yeah, you just discovered it. Yep.
Yeah, now
So.
we've made really big progress. In 2020, our net worth was like around $160,000.
Hmm.
5 years later, our net worth is now close to like 800 and something, 800,000.
Ooh, well on track to 1 million.
Yes,
Wow.
yes. Even with this rackety tackety stock market.
Yeah, no, that's what's impressive. You just got to time in the market, right? You got to just keep going
By consistently
consistently. Yeah.
invest consistently. Yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And today specifically, I remember when we were talking about coming on the podcast, I wanted to pick apart at your buying a home specifically because it's in California. And well, I think everyone knows that that's just notoriously tough to get a home in California because of the prices, but like also because of the demand, because of the location, just so many factors. So, I mean, I want to begin with what made you just decide to take that leap when you did to get to buy that home, and like, what are some of the biggest fears going into the process? So, two things, right? Like, what made you
Yeah.
do it, and what are some of the biggest fears going into the process?
I would say what was driving our home buying process was husband.
Okay.
Husband wanted to become a homeowner.
Okay.
He wanted to have his own place. We were living in an apartment right before this house, and he hated having like neighbors below us because we have two kids, and he always felt like he
Right.
had to tell the kids like, "Hey, don't make too much noise." He didn't like that we always heard our neighbors, and he was like, I want a house. I want a house for my nervous system." When he said, "I want a house for my nervous system," that's when I was like, okay,
Yeah.
time to create a financial plan and let's really do this. Up until
Wow.
that point, and that was in I want to say that was like 2024. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Like
was like in
beginning.
the
Yeah,
beginning
because I
of
remember when you first
2024.
started like posting in your stories about it, the journey too was
Yeah.
around that
Up
time. Yeah.
until that point, I think we were just like, I was like, we're just not ready yet. We're not ready. Our finances are not in
Yeah.
place yet. It's really going to impact our lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't prioritizing it. I was like, let's just make more money, increase our income, and invest more.
Yeah.
Let's not change our expenses with home ownership. And I also had a lot of like, I don't know, like wounds around owning a home. I had,
Okay.
unlike husband had grew up in the projects in the South Bronx. I had grown up in LA in a house, but the house was in bad condition.
Mm.
It like we didn't have a television, we didn't have cable. A veces we didn't even have like our utilities covered. So for me, I had a lot of house like trauma.
Trauma. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had grown
Hmm.
up house poor, and I was like, you know what? Having a house is not all what they say it's about.
Yeah.
It's not so
Yeah.
amazing all the time. And
Right.
so, because of that, I didn't feel this pressure or this strong pull to own a home. I
Hmm.
knew that I could build financial security as a renter, and I was fine with that.
And I remember you mentioning at that time, I think before you even I think explored to get that home, I remember you were talking about exploring like house hacking options or something like that as well, right?
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
like even like in 2020, we were renting, but we also like rented out a room to my brother. And so I kind of like, I like that. The property that we ended up buying here, and I would say like the fears that I had was that it was going to dramatically impact like our lifestyle. And
Right.
so because I had those fears, like we really, really worked on increasing our income. In
Okay.
2020, our combined income was 120,000.
Okay.
And in 2024, our combined income was like 750,000.
Okay. So when you tell
So
me your
like
combined income, I like cut it in half because it's California. No, it's just
yeah. Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
But we like increased it
But
so
that's
much and
insane.
yes. And but
Wow.
most of that is husband. Husband because he
Okay.
started working for a publicly traded company. He
Yeah.
job hopped his way to do that. He's a software engineer. And then he wanted to work for a
Holy.
company that would provide him with restricted stock units, RSUs.
Okay.
And that RSU money, when we were selling company stock, we were just very intentional about saving it for a house.
Right. So RSU stocks when you the company like gives you part of, like stocks in their company, right? So you have like
Yeah.
stakes in it, and you can do as you like, right?
Yep. And it's part of your compensation.
Mm.
So
Oh, okay.
husband gets like his base salary, and then every quarter he also gets 200 he gets $250,000 in stock. If the stock goes up and he sells it, then he ends up getting more than 250,000.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So he just depends like when he sells it, right?
Right.
That's awesome because it worked into his contract and everything, and then you're at the same time um, trying to figure out how you're gonna increase your income, and he's doing it, and and you're trying to buy a house in the process. I mean, that's so much going on. But like,
And we had
what?
2 kids.
And you had two kids, right? You can't forget that, obviously. I mean, that just adds so many more factors to it. You sat down, and you're like, I'm gonna buy the home, right? What was your goal? Like, what was that talk like? You're like, we need to hit this and that. Like, where were you looking? And just what was your goal money wise that you guys needed to
Yeah.
hit when you were on this journey of like, let's increase our income first of all.
Yeah. Well, we had started to focus on increasing our income
Mm-hmm.
even when we were trying to get to the point where we could max out retirement accounts,
Oh, okay,
which
yeah.
we wanted to max out our retirement accounts for early retirement. And so that
Mm.
was, I would say, even like in 2021, I had started having conversations with husband about, no, actually, it was late 2020 when I
Oh,
did
okay.
this calculation and I was like, if we buy a $1 million house, which
Yep.
is like where I am in LA, that's the minimum. The minimum.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yep.
and it's gonna be a fixer-upper, everybody. It's not even like not even like decked out or anything. Okay, so I had run some calculations and I was like, if we buy a $1 million house, then we need to make a combined income of $338,000. I was
Okay.
like, we'll be able to buy a house, but it's gonna be like it was gonna come at the expense of being able to retire early.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, but and so, but at least it gave us a number. And I remember when I sat down with husband and I showed him that number, he said, I'm gonna make that money all on my own.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, in my mind, I was like, oh, I'll do half. Like we're gonna have to split it in half. And I was very scared and nervous because I had been a teacher. And my last year in the
Mm-hmm.
in the classroom, I had made like $69,000.
Yeah.
So for me to even make half of 328 meant that I was gonna have to make more than $150,000. And my last year in the classroom, I made 69,000. So
Yeah.
to go from 69,000 to 150 felt like so heavy for me. It
Yeah.
felt impossible.
Yep.
And then here I have my husband saying, like, oh, I can make that. I can make that. Just me on my own.
Wow.
And I
Wow.
felt in that moment, I felt very insecure. I felt
Okay.
very,
Okay.
very insecure. But where I had insecurity, my husband made up in confidence. So much
Oh.
confianza. So much and it rubbed off on me. The more he talked about like, yeah, it's so easy to increase your income. It's so easy. Like we have skills. We can monetize these skills. Like, and he just was talking like that so often
Mm.
that it rubbed off on me. And now I'm like, everyone can increase your income. It's part of
Right.
like what I teach people.
Right. Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I mean, to have that confidence and to encourage you that way as well, I'm sure allowed you both also to grow and gave you that space to also grow like your like Wealth Academy, right? In the meantime. So confidence is key when it comes to not just buying a home, but your everyday life, especially in finances. Taking that leap, right? What are some of the like biggest surprises, whether they were good or bad, that you encountered while you were like searching for a home? Like, was there anything that you wish you had known before you started?
Well, I did a lot of research. I did
Mm-hmm.
a lot of research in developing my financial literacy. Like in some ways, like but before I was even willing to look at houses, I had to have money that was a 20% down payment. I wanted to have 3% for closing costs, and I even wanted to have a furniture fund already set up.
Oh.
So husband was on Zillow every day, always looking at houses, always saying stuff to me, and he would send them to me. And I created this Google Sheet calculator. And
Okay.
I was like, look, stop sharing houses with me because put the selling price of that house in this calculator. And it would like say like what we needed in order to buy it, and it would tell him whether we could afford it or not. And if and every
Mm-hmm.
time he sent a house to me, it would just say no. It would just say no because we couldn't. We didn't have the 20%. We didn't have the
Yeah.
closing costs. But he kept at it, like always showing stuff. And then I like made the calculator even more specific. And actually, I want to like bring it up in front of me so I
Yeah, I'm
could.
curious. I'm curious about you. Did you make this, or is this
Mhm.
it's one of the tools that I mean your students or people that you coach can also utilize?
Yes, yes, I definitely
Wow,
share
okay.
it with them. But also, I was featured in an article, and I'll give you the link to that
Yeah, yeah.
article so you could put it in your
Yeah, I
podcast
would love
notes.
that. Yeah.
And in that article, I shared my calculator, the version that I had created at that time.
Oh,
So anyone
cool.
who's listening can also get access to the calculator.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll have that
Um,
in the show notes then.
so because I had been developing my financial literacy, I knew that I needed to have 20% down payment, 5% closing costs, 3% maintenance fund, which is
Mm-hmm.
just like an emergency fund for your house. And that is something like, I had grown up in a home where, like, if something broke or things are messed up, like, it didn't get fixed because there wasn't money set aside for that.
Yeah.
But one thing that I had read a lot is like, you want to take your whatever the value of your home is, take 3% of that and put that aside because house repairs are going to happen, just like car
Mm-hmm.
repairs are going to happen.
Yep.
And then oh my goodness, it's so funny because I was really, really, uh, so anxious about becoming house poor that I put all our ducks in a row when it came to this because I wanted that 20% down payment, that 5% closing costs, 3% maintenance fund,
Uh-huh.
1% of property taxes, and money to buy furniture. So those were the five things that I wanted to
Wow.
have money set aside before I was even willing to go look at a house in person.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like
It
prepping
was
for like everything here. But that's why I mean I feel like that's why you are who you are, you know. You were setting aside like all these percentages and calculating putting the money so that you don't have like you can minimize all the things that usually come with buying like a home, right?
Mhm.
And you felt like that helped you a lot.
100%. But by, I think it was in June 2024, Hasbe had found a house and it was like 800 something thousand dollars.
Okay.
And when he put in the calculator, we had the money for it.
Okay.
There was like, we were going to have it the next time he sold his RSUs. So we went to go look at the house. But the issue was that the house, and this is like a new thing that they're doing in California, where they build multiple units, multiple houses on the same
Okay.
land, and it's called like a common property, algo así.
Okay. Wait, so but is it individual houses on the same land or are they connected?
They are on the same land. They're not necessarily sharing
Oh,
a
okay.
wall.
Okay. But oh, so is it owned by a certain like maintenance and like all that by a certain company or you buy the plot like
So
of
you own your house,
uh-huh.
but you don't own the land.
That okay, that's what it sounds like. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. And so, and when if you want to sell, then you can sell like you're part of it, but then you also have to pay HOA fees because
Mm,
there are some things that are like in common. And it was a
that's
beautiful
what it was. Yeah.
home.
No, screw HOA
It,
fees.
yes, yes, but it was a beautiful home. It was like new, right? It
Mhm.
was just built, and I don't even think like we couldn't even afford the
Okay.
$810,000 one. There was one that was
Oh,
700,000,
okay.
and that one we could afford, but like we'd have street parking.
Yeah, it's just
The schools
inconvenient.
that we were going to be at, it wasn't like we were moving into an area where the schools were going to be so much better.
Yeah.
And um and so but I still was like, I'm down.
Okay.
And when I looked at the paperwork, the thing was that they expected you had to use a loan provider specific to that they approved, that like realtor approved, and their
Huh.
loan provider only provided or only allowed ARM mortgages. An ARM mortgage is an adjustable rate mortgage. And
So what does that mean
that
simply?
That simply means that your interest rate on your mortgage can vary. It can change at any time.
Yeah.
And that I knew we could not afford.
Yeah.
Like we needed our interest rate to be we needed the certainty, the understanding of our exact interest rate, because then it could change, it could go up, and that could change our mortgage
Yeah.
so much.
And change your whole
And we wouldn't be able
finances.
to afford it.
Throw off
Yes.
everything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I never heard
And
of sorry it's just so
mm-hmm.
interesting about the that they would have to go with a specific loan officer or like a place, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was it loan officer or was it just like the specific
No,
like
it
place?
was like the loan provider. It wasn't
Oh,
even like
wow. Not
yeah,
even the
and that's because in
wow.
California, this type of property,
Yeah.
this community property, it's new. It's a
Oh.
new thing. Like literally, laws have just been written to even allow something like this. And so the financing to finance a property like that was very
Yeah.
strict.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So
makes
that
sense.
happened in June. And that did, though, like it was the first time I felt excited about
Mm.
becoming a homeowner.
Lit a fire.
And that helped me because then I realized, you know what? If we're thinking about like the wealth building cycle, developing our financial literacy, check. Knowing our numbers, check. Increasing our income, check. But when it came to buying a home, I had a rackety tackety money mindset. I still had all this like unresolved
Yeah.
house trauma. And so I then was like very like I got to work on this. I got to change how I think about buying property so that
Mm.
so that the right property comes my way so that I'm prepared for it because it was so nerve-wracking for me. My mind would just go to all the worst case scenarios instead of all the like beautiful possibilities. And so I did a
Yeah.
lot of journaling, a lot of self-coaching where I really worked on like unpacking the things that I was afraid about and what I could change and how I wanted to view home ownership. Then
I'm
things changed.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, like the changing kind of your perspective, but especially what you mentioned about doing these things for like self care when like during this process. That was actually one of my big questions, and might as well just ask it now because a home buying process is such there's so many emotions, there's so many struggles, there's stress, there's like fear of missing out, right? FOMO, there's frustration during that process. And maybe you could give us a little bit of a deeper dive into like how you manage that and like how you practice self-care and like manage your mindset through it all. And you kind of gave us a little bit of that right there. But digging into that more, I think would be very beneficial for people that are like going through it.
Yeah. So, well, at one point, I was even talking about it with my therapist. And there's something called EMDR. It's a form of therapy.
Okay.
And that is like it's a somatic therapy where you understand how like trauma, it gets stuck in your body. It's not
Mm.
just like how you think, but like your body remembers feeling
Oh,
unsafe.
wow.
And so it's about really releasing that from the body so that you could eventually start thinking about it differently.
Mm-hmm.
So I did do some EMDR around what it felt like as a kid having not having water to shower and because the utilities weren't paid for, or what it also felt like having to wash dishes in the bathtub because the kitchen sink didn't work. Like these were like things that really stayed with me that made me really feel afraid of owning a
Wow. Okay.
home and having that level of financial insecurity just to be a homeowner. And
Mm-hmm.
so like tapping into that understanding like where my fears were, where my resistance was coming from, and then also like providing it with context, right? Because as a child we don't see the full picture, you know. And when you start to think about it from context, I'm like, damn, like my mom, how amazing that she held on to this property even when it was
Mm-hmm.
so hard for her,
Yep.
because now that property that she had bought for $100,000 is worth more than 1 million. And she did get to a point where she was able to refinance, take out money from the property to some of the equity, and
Yep.
be able to fix the house up. And it's
Wow,
like,
that's
my mom did that.
huge.
My mom did
Wow.
that, you know, as an immigrant to this country, like she did that. And so
Wow.
adding that additional context, seeing how that house is now part of my mom's retirement, right?
Mm.
Because she's renting it out now. Like and she has tenants, right? Like that is
Oh my,
providing her
hell
with
yeah.
income,
Hell
you know?
yeah.
And so when I started to like hold space for the trauma, validate it, and be like, yeah, that was scary and that was very fearful. And at the same time, look at this additional context. Look at how it has served you. Look at how it has served your mom. Even my mom, you know, when I went to college and I took out student loans, she had taken money out from the house to pay like a
Help you
Parent
with the
Plus
loans.
loan.
Oh
Mhm.
wow.
So it's like this house, like my brain was focused on all the drawbacks
Yeah.
because of as a trauma response. But once I like held space for that and started to look at things more, you know, expansively, then I was able to be like, oh, okay, like you see everything. And then you could start making informed decisions versus
Mm.
just decisions off of vibes and feelings.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And how did your mom know to do all that? I'm so curious.
I
Like
don't
get
think
that
she
loan
knew.
out and like
Yeah.
you
Um,
know, we're not really obviously that's why you do what you do, right? We don't grow up with that. Like we're not
mhm.
educated on that on those subjects. Like, hey,
I
just
I
do this
think
type of
my
loan.
mom knew eventually when my sister went to college and she had a friend who went into like real estate. And I
Mm-hmm.
think her friend, my sister's friend, told my mom, "Hey, you can do this."
Yeah.
And my mom was like, "Oh, okay." You know,
Wow.
so much of it is like it's all information, whether we get exposed to it. And I think it's so
Mm-hmm.
important that we talk dinero with people and we build relationships where we trust also what people are sharing with us because that's how we learn. That's how we learn and try new things.
Yeah. And then so much resilience too that just I'm sure was passed down, you know, from her to you, which is part of your healing journey. That I can tell was a big part of it because you're like, look, if she was able to do that, if she looked like to make it happen, she looked for every single way to make it happen, then I can also look for every single way and make that happen for me, you know, and then lean on kind of that resilience that she had to move forward. I love that because I feel like that's a big lesson I'm going to take out of this is leaning on the resilience of like your parents and even anyone that you might look up to that just, you know, keeps moving forward despite whatever is happening in life. That's beautiful.
Hmm.
that is
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
Yeah. And so, in terms of the house, but once I changed in terms of my thinking and I really
Mhm.
emotionally was like on board and I had like all
Right.
aspects of the wealth building cycle like checked off on the house, then we went and found another house that was nice. It went on the market for, I think, like $1 million.
Okay.
It ended up selling for 1.3 million. And
Okay, so you
so,
didn't get that one then.
no, we didn't
Okay,
get that
okay.
house. And we did put in an offer
Okay.
on that house. And that one, I would say the big lesson that we took from there was getting clarity about what we wanted in a home, what we were willing to sacrifice, and what we were
Mm.
not willing to sacrifice. And so that home was beautiful, ready to move in. It wasn't going to put the kids in like a completely better school,
Yeah.
but the school was at least going to match where our kids were currently going to school. And it was close to family. I really liked the location a lot.
Okay.
However, at the end of the day, I was not going to buy a house that I knew that we couldn't afford, right? That
Key.
was going to
Mhm.
change our lifestyle dramatically.
Yeah.
And when they said put in your best and final offer, it was like we did. We did put in our best and final offer.
Right.
Nothing's changing.
That was our best and final offer.
Yes.
Okay. Like,
And husband and I were like on the same page about that. Like we
okay.
were
Good.
like
Good.
there was no like, oh my God, but you know, it's so pretty and think about
Yeah.
the parties that we could have here and it'll be so fun. It was nope. I mean, that house even had like multiple fruit trees. So it was like,
Oh,
it was not
damn.
like being like, oh, trying to convince the person of like, oh, think about all the agua frescas we could make and eventually sell. Like, no, we were
Yeah.
like,
Put a stand outside.
we're gonna have our boundaries around what we could afford.
Yeah.
And so we stuck to that.
And you also, I mean, another thing that you said that was really key in that buying, home buying process that I also realized when we were getting our place was, like you said, kind of seeing what you're willing to sacrifice is huge, because going into it, you're like, you have this vision of like, I want this home, this perfect home, I want this and that, and if it's not that, then I don't want it, and if I do find that, then I want it. But you can't sacrifice your finances and then be in a home that you can't even afford, in this perfect home in your eyes, right? The way you view it, but you're now in this home that you can't afford. Like, so that's a huge lesson that I also had to learn, that I had to mention to people when you said it, was willing, like your wants, and like, not like what you're willing to sacrifice and what you're not willing to sacrifice, right? And then kind of making maybe a list of that. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, this was our list. We wanted at least 3 bedrooms, at least 2 baths, walking distance to an elementary school with a rating of 6 or above,
Mm-hmm.
a bathtub, a dishwasher, a party area, a
Mm-hmm.
yard, an ADU or separate space for the office, and for it to be move-in ready. That's what we wanted.
That's not. I feel like that's not eccentric. Like, that's kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
you want the kind of good requirements for a family that has kids, and like
Mm-hmm.
work, and maybe you work from home or
And we
something.
both work from home,
There you go.
you know?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we wanted. And there was times, like, I remember one of the houses that we saw like didn't have a bathtub, and I was like, bathtubs are a key part of like my self-care routines. I need to be able to have a
Okay.
bathtub.
There you go.
And for me, the whole reason I wanted to buy a house is so that I could have like family parties in the backyard. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, we need to make sure that we have space for parties. So we got very clear about what we wanted. And then I think it's like things got a little like move in ready. Like
Okay.
move in ready can change, it's subjective. And the house that we ended up buying, in some sense, it was move in ready, right? Like
Okay.
the house itself.
Yeah.
However, like it was livable. There was some houses that we were looking at that
I
the
was
inside was not livable. Like
okay.
you
I
would
was
have
gonna say, I
to
would
do
hope
so
it's
many
livable.
repairs.
Okay, I got. Well, I mean, what do you mean by move-in ready then? In
Yeah,
your
so,
in your
so that's
terms,
the
right?
thing. So like you have to be able to cook your food in the kitchen. Like
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
you
Fair.
guys have to
Fair.
look up alley houses to really understand
Now
what
I'm
I'm
gonna
talking
go and look
about.
up these. Yeah.
You
No.
have to.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
You have to, because some of these houses, they're like, move in, but you have to knock them completely down, or you have to do so many repairs.
Oh boy.
And so for
Yeah.
me, I was like, I didn't want to have to do any repairs to the inside of the house. At the end
Right.
of the day, like this house that we chose, like the bathroom doesn't have vents. The kitchen layout is a little funky. I
Mm-hmm.
hate the bathroom tiles. However, it was all livable. My
There you
kids
go.
were not going to get hurt walking in this space because the ceiling's kind of falling, or
Yeah.
because
Right.
the floors are uneven. Like it was livable.
Okay.
The outside of the house, atrocious, ugly, no curb appeal, no
No
curb
curb
appeal.
appeal.
But I walked into this property and I was like, the school, walking distance, a little
Okay.
further, right? Like usually we were acostumbrados to walk like a fourth of a mile. Now
Okay.
we walk a full mile to go to
Okay.
the school, but
Yeah.
it's still
Nice
walkable.
little
We could
warm
do
up
that.
there
Yes.
in the mornings, right?
And it's all like uphill. It's
Oh,
okay. We
okay.
could
All
do
right. All
that.
right. Okay.
So we like adjusted in terms of that part. And the outside, like I said, no curb appeal, but on my list, I never said that we needed to have curb appeal. So
That's
it
right.
was
That's right.
okay. It
Mm-hmm.
was okay. And I just looked at it and I was like, I can work with this. I can work with this. And I could, con tiempo, poco a poco, fix it up to make it a little cuter, to have more curb appeal and build things. And the numbers for this house, when this specific house went on market, it was on market for 1.25 million.
Okay.
We got it for 1.175.
All right. You managed to
Yes.
talk them down a bit, huh?
Well, this is where I'm saying like we kind of got lucky because they had it on market and for 30 days
Oh,
and they didn't have any offers.
wow.
And so they brought the price down.
Yeah.
And when it was at 1.175, I was like, my little calculator, when I
Mm-hmm.
put in the numbers, it
Ding, ding,
showed,
ding.
yes, you can afford it.
I
So then I
love
was
that.
like,
gotta
okay.
check out this calculator. Sort of
Yes,
that.
yes. I
Sometimes
kind
you
of want
just
to
need
like
something
share
that's
my
like,
screen.
yeah. Sometimes you just need something that just says yes and no. Honestly, it puts like a
Yes.
big red in the no.
Yes, I'm sending, we're on Zoom right now, everybody. So I'm like
hmm
trying to share my screen with Kevin because I want him to see this calculator.
Yes, please. I'm
And then
definitely
all of
gonna.
you, you will get to see the calculator like in the show notes. So you see this?
Yeah, and I'll look, and I'll
Can you
highlight it.
afford it? No. Yes.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, you
And
got all
so
the
I just had all this
percentages
information.
down.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I would play around with this part here and change around like how much money we had saved. And what helped us was one, that that they had the house on the market for 30
For
days,
30 days.
hadn't
Yep.
gotten any offers. They decreased the price and they wanted to sell this house quickly. The person who owned this house never lived in it.
Mm. Oh,
They rented it.
I
And
got
what
it.
they wanted to do was sell this primary residence, like it's a not a primary residence, a single family home to buy a multi-unit property
Ah, and then rent that out.
and rent that one out.
I see. So they want to just
And
get rid of it.
yes, they just wanted to
Mm-hmm.
get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they told us like this is where things got hard. And when you ask me like what is it that you wish you would have known,
Mm-hmm.
is once you put in an offer and it gets accepted, the paperwork and everything that's required, you have to move really quick. And so we submitted an offer at asking price. We said 1.175.
Right.
They accepted the offer. And what we said is like, hey, we will do a turnaround in terms of all our paperwork, get everything approved within 14 days.
Wow.
They said, do it in 10. That was their
Why?
counter offer. That because they really wanted to sell this house as soon as possible so that he could then take the money from this house and buy his other one.
Right. Yeah. I guess.
Right? Because he's like trying to get this other property, this
Yeah.
other
So he needs like the
multi-unit,
money in
and he
hand, like
needs
as
the
quick as.
cash and he needs
Yeah.
like the letter as
Yeah.
fast as possible.
But like 4 days. Come on.
I know, but dude, it makes a difference in
Yeah.
terms of
Okay.
like how fast you had
And
to work.
prices. No. No.
Yeah.
I get it.
And
Yeah.
so, no, like it made a difference in terms of for us, like the stress, because here we are,
Oh. Okay.
first time homeowners,
Yeah.
and 14 days to do paperwork, and then 10 days, like I
Yeah.
had to be checking emails and signing papers so much. It was challenging. And this is like we put in our offer on December 1st. We had the keys to the house on December 20th.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. And do you have to get like inspection and all that to come in and like
Yes.
in that
We
in
had
that
to get
right?
all the inspections done
Right.
within 10 days.
Yeah. So was it easy finding someone that at least?
Our realtor took care of it.
Oh, thank
So our
goodness.
realtor just like scheduled all of it.
Yep.
So we put in our offer. Their counter offer wasn't trying to increase the price. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't that. It was just like work faster. And we're like, okay,
Fair. No, it's like all right. I want this
yes,
house. Like all right.
yes.
Like.
And then we did it. And then we did all the paperwork. But oh my goodness, there was a point in there. I haven't told this story to anyone that there was a time that we were like sleep deprived because my self-care routines during that time were getting interrupted. I wasn't able to go on my morning walks. There was nights that I was staying up really late to read the paperwork because you're reading so much paperwork, signing paperworks, gathering all your information so that you could send it over to get it approved for a mortgage. Plus, I had my two kids in school. It's the end of the school year. They're trying to
Mm-hmm.
do like their holiday celebration, so practicing with them. And so I was so sleep deprived. Husband was sleep deprived, stress was high, and there was a point where we got into a fight, and I was like, I don't even want this house anymore.
No.
Yes, yes. And we had
No.
like already signed over like our
Okay, so this was in
deposit
that 10-day process.
in the 10-day
No.
process. Yes.
Oh
And
my
so we had already
goodness.
sent like $30,000, like as this like
It's almost like a
like
security
the
type of thing.
escrow,
Or...
like
Oh
yeah,
yeah. And
the
that's
escrow
it is in the
deposit.
escrow. Yeah.
Mhm. And I was like, I don't even care. Let them take that $30,000. I just want to withdraw. And he was like, cool,
No.
me too.
No.
And we were like fighting. And then I remember us sitting at our dining room
Ay, ay,
table.
ay.
He was at one end, I was at
Yeah.
the other end. And I was like, I'm mad, he's mad. And I was just like, I'm just so tired. I'm
Oh.
just so tired. And he was like, me too. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that like, how can I support you? And I was like, you know what? I think for the rest of the week, like, we just have to order food. Let's not worry about cooking. Let's just have all our meals delivered to us. Let's see if my mom can help us in terms of
No,
picking up the kids.
that's
Like, you
smart.
know what? Let's see if we could get somebody else to get the holiday outfits for the kids, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna block my schedule and can you take a few days off? And that's the changes that we made. But what was hard, Kevin, we buy this house in 20 days. Then we have to pack up everything and move.
Oh, I didn't even think about the having to pack up everything and move it all into the house. Now,
Yes.
okay, so
So
that
we
brings
moved in January
interesting.
3rd.
Okay,
Okay. So
okay,
get the keys December 20th. I now have to switch my kids to a different school. But
right.
December 20th is like the last day of the semester. So I'm going to this other school district trying to sign them in. And they're like, well, where is your proof that you closed escrow? They want the proof of the papers. So we're like
Mm,
doing this drive back and forth from where we were to like where we are now, which was like a 35-minute drive, not too crazy, but with LA traffic, it could get like a lot more intense. We have to coordinate packing everything, doing the move. So I buy the house December 20th. I schedule everything to move into our new house January 3rd. That's holiday season. I still had, Christmas and New Year's and all the family events.
yep.
The
Wow.
worst part, this is not even. I move in January 3rd.
Wait, that wasn't the worst part.
No,
Oh,
I
yeah,
move
yeah.
in January 3rd and January 4th. Wildfires started right down our new house.
Right by
The
the house.
California
That's right.
wildfires.
Yeah.
And the wind started, and it was so scary. And we
Oh
had
my
to
gosh.
evacuate on
Yes, I
January
remember.
8th.
I remember you put on the story that you had to evacuate, and I remember I hit you up, and wow, wow, oh my God,
Yep.
Soledad.
So we had to evacuate. Then we were like, then that was so scary because as we drove out, like we had not even been able to stay in this house for a full week yet. We still didn't even have like our refrigerator in the house yet. It hadn't
Wow.
even been moved. We had to evacuate with the understanding that if our house got burnt down, all the insurance company would give us was $400,000. And yet our mortgage loan was $916,500.
You'd be in the hole for that much. That's insane.
We'd be in the hole. We'd have to pay the mortgage, and the money that they would give us probably wouldn't even like build the house back up. So it was such a scary, uncertain time. And remember, I told you I already had house trauma. I wasn't even
Oh
somebody
yeah,
who
no, yeah.
wanted to buy the house. So then
You're
I
like, this is why I'm
experienced
like, I
this.
told you.
Yes.
Like,
Yes,
no.
my trauma
I
came
I can
back
see
up.
it.
It
Oh
got
yeah, yeah.
activated
Oh
and we
my
left
gosh.
and then we couldn't move back because there was power shortages
Yeah.
for over a week. Our
Wow.
food, we finally get the refrigerator doesn't work. We have to get rid of the refrigerator. It was like so much. And then there came a point where I noticed my defense mechanisms were
Yeah.
popping up, where I was like, I kept criticizing the house. I kept being like,
Hmm.
oh my God, I hate these bathroom floors. Or, oh, how annoying that this is there. Like I kept being so, so mean to the house that my husband was like, do you want to sell it? Like you're so unhappy here.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's not that I'm unhappy, is that I'm so scared of loving this house. And maybe the wildfire didn't get us
Just
this
be
time, but
taken
it gets us
away.
next time.
Yeah. Oh my
And I had
gosh.
to like sit again and journal and get coaching about this because I was like, I had to decide, am I willing to love and lose it?
That's so tough. You just got
And
this
then
house.
I just freaking got the house.
You just
And as
got this
soon as I
house.
made that decision of like, yes, I choose to love this house, even if it means that one day I lose it, then I started making it a home. Then I started like, okay, let's fix this. Let's buy, the furniture. Let's, decorate the walls. And then I started
Start
taking
falling
care
in
of
love with
it.
the process. I'm sure also, right?
Yes.
When you're going through it as well, you're like, okay, you making it feel more homey and like all this
Hmm.
and that, right? So that's maybe kind of help a little bit with that. I'm sure.
Yes. But that was, early February when I decided like, okay, I'm gonna love this house. Then my son broke his foot. My grandma stopped eating. My abuela
Oh
passes
yeah,
away in March. So
yeah,
now we're in April
yep,
and I'm like, okay, I think it's time to have like a housewarming party. Like I
yeah,
need to like bring in some new energy into this
yeah,
this whole
yeah.
experience and start creating the beautiful memories that I know are
Oh,
possible. that I
Yeah.
know are possible.
And we're all
People are going
invited,
to
right?
listen to this podcast and they're going to be so scared to buy a house.
No, no. Look, if you're not in California, you're good. No, I'm just kidding. It's this is why I wanted to have you on here, because all these factors are like, they're pretty unique to California in that aspect, especially in the fires that are happening. That's being a real fear. Now, that gets me curious. When you go through the home buying process, is there a certain insurance that you have to get related to fires, or like that you have to get, or is it optional?
Okay, so this is a very, very good question because now here in California, what we're dealing with is people who don't want to provide you with house insurance.
Oh.
So even finding house insurance is very challenging.
Hmm.
And we got our policy through California Fair Policy Plan. It's a specific thing. It's not like a company, but this is what we had to get in order to, because obviously if you're borrowing money, they
Yep.
want to see that you have insurance
Hmm.
just in case something happens. But something else that was happening in January and February is we did get a policy plan and they started nitpicking it. They started saying, like, oh, you know what? Your pipes aren't this way. You need to fix this in order for us to be able to give you insurance. Oh, you know
What?
what? Your husband didn't graduate from college. Oh,
What?
yes, yes, he didn't
What?
graduate from college. That means you have to pay more money. So we have even
What?
had, yes, yes, we've
I've
been having
never
to
heard this
navigate
before.
all
That
this
is
like very crazy
insane.
house insurance stuff. It is insane.
What the heck? Just give me my damn coverage. Like, I'll pay you the money. Don't worry about all this other stuff. That's crazy.
Yeah,
I've
so like
never
one
heard
of
of
the things that
insurance
we
doing
have to
that.
do is we're gonna have to like pay $4,000 to add this thing to our pipes by July, or else they're gonna take away our house insurance.
Wow. Wow. So they came in
Which
and did an inspection of their own, I guess.
no, it's not even an inspection. Like the pipes are fine. It's more like we have to have this mechanism that
Hmm.
if a pipe breaks, that it's gonna stop the water or something
Oh
like
my
that. It's like this
gosh.
little extra thing,
Hmm.
and we don't have this. This house was built in the 1950s, so it's like an older house. It doesn't have like that up-to-date stuff.
That should just be like grandfathered in or whatever. I feel like that's one of those things insurance companies do to just get money out of you. That's probably like their first go to with like houses. They're like, hey, well, how's your pipes, by the way? Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, give us 4 grand then. Wow.
But because yours truly had this little calculator of a 3% maintenance fund, it was not even
Yes.
something like money wise, money has not been the stressor in buying the
That's good.
house. We had the money, we had saved $17,000 for
Hmm.
furniture.
Oh, okay.
And we stuck to that budget. And so we were able to buy like the new things for the house and able to do that. And another thing that I want to share before like we hop off
Yeah, yeah.
is we bought down our interest rate. So our interest at the time that we were closing would
Oh,
have
okay.
been 7.29% on the mortgage.
Wow. It's a little hefty.
And yeah, that's high. So we paid 30, let's see, do I have it in here? I want to give you like the exact number.
Yeah, yeah. So you paid to bring it down. It wasn't like a
Mm-hmm.
refinance?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, it was not
interesting.
a refinance. No,
Oh,
we couldn't
okay.
refinance it because we didn't own the property.
That's right. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay.
So we bought down our interest. We paid 33,000 like $500
To bring it
and
down.
to bring it down to 5.9%,
Okay.
which made a big difference in terms of what our monthly payment was going to be.
Did you get a 30
And
year or
we did get a 30
okay.
year. We did get a 30 year with no penalties if we make extra payments to pay it off early.
That's important.
And we put down 22%, not
Hmm.
the 20%. We
Hmm.
did 22%. We also bought down the interest, which allowed us to have a mortgage payment that we liked. We did not include property taxes in our payments for our mortgage. We pay that separately. And we
Oh, okay.
chose to do that because like our property taxes are around like $13,000 a year.
Okay.
And so we decided like Since my husband has RSUs, restricted
Oh,
stock
yeah,
units,
use that
he'll
towards it.
just put that money, put it aside, put in a high yield savings account, let that $13,000 earn interest, and then we
Mm.
just pay it in full.
Yeah, I love that. Use the interest for the interest and the
Mm-hmm,
taxes.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
No, that's
And
good. That's
the
good.
goal, like our goal now is to pay off this house in 10 years.
Wow.
And according to my calculations, we can
That's right.
do that
Which
if we
hasn't
make
failed
an
you yet.
X, which has not failed me yet. um, we will be able to do that as long as we make an extra $50,000 payment every year.
Okay. Wow.
So that's the goal. That's in terms of like my business, what I want to be able to do, and increasing my income so that I can make that extra payment. And then we're also currently navigating turning the garage into a studio ADU
Oh,
because we want husband to have his own office, his own little space,
yeah.
and eventually at some point we'll be able to rent it out and get some income from that.
Ooh, that's interesting. I've heard of some people do that. Um, but I never met anyone that's actually done it.
Yeah,
So,
we're doing it. We're doing it, and I'm gonna like
so I would love to see the process of that.
yes, I was sharing the process a lot when it
Yeah.
was happening, and then life started to life, and then I was like,
Well,
but I got
yeah,
to
I
get
don't
back
blame you.
to sharing like my first time homeowner journey with everybody,
Yes. I'm telling
and
you, so
I'll
many
share that on
people would
social
be
media.
like interested. That's what, especially why, like I said, I have you on here and everything because it's such a frustrating process. So just hearing about it too, and like certain words are like, oh, what's that? Will it like trigger people to also go look it up and be like, oh yeah, maybe I should look into that before buying a home, or like,
Hmm.
buying a home is such a big financial decision for anyone, that you just want to be prepared as possible, and that's I'd be interested. Do you have something like that as well, like in your academy or like any programs where you're like, I can, that's catered to like that as well?
Yeah. So in Wealth But at Those Academy, we have four trainings. Well, we have more than four trainings. We have nine trainings a month. However, the first training is like knowing your numbers. The second one is always a financial literacy workshop. And so, like
Mm,
this specific month, we're talking about how to leverage debt in order to build wealth. But I sometimes hire guest speakers, and they come in and they give certain
cool.
trainings. Like I'm gonna have my realtor eventually come in and
Yeah.
talk about like buying a property, as long as it's whatever the members say that they need help with. So
Hmm.
right now, there's members who are like really want to focus on like student loan debt, so doing workshops around that. But the academy is very responsive. We have a curriculum and classes that people can take, but there's nine live coaching calls where I'm like going in and I'm sharing everything in real time to help them increase their financial security.
I love that. So yeah, so I figured you did because you're just so smart and you just cover all your bases and everything. So I'm like that'd be a perfect opportunity like if someone's interested to hit you up as well and sign up for the academy to be the reason to do it as well. Like that's a big thing and they can help you through it. So especially the guest speakers so cool. I didn't know that you brought in guest speakers. That's so cool. I love that. Now we're kind of getting close to our time here and I don't want to hold you too long, but I am curious because you're such a big retirement, oriented, like goal oriented person where like I need to retire by this certain age. How has this process of buying a home impacted your goal of retiring early? And has it?
It has not. This goal is still to become work optional at 47. That is why, though, in order to do that, we want to make sure that we pay off the house before we retire. Right
Mm,
now, our mortgage, well, the payment that we make every month is $5,555.
okay.
And we want to have the house completely paid off so that our expenses at retirement are dramatically less.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Nice.
the
There
and
you go.
according to my calculations, we are still on track.
Well,
We're still gonna do it.
yes. Sort of calculations you can always count on that. Now, what's that you've been through this experience? What's last question here before we get into, you can promote some of your stuff as well. Now that you've been through this experience, like what advice would you give to first time home buyers or anyone that's buying a home in California? Um, and maybe that they feel like it's a little bit out of reach?
Yeah, I would say that you want to know your numbers. You want to really understand your numbers, do your calculations. There's a lot of calculators online in terms of what you can afford. And you don't have to have a 20% down payment. There are also down payment assistance programs depending on, how much money you make and where you want to buy. There are like I want to say there's always a way. You just got to have like the will, right? And when you have the will, then it's about getting the information to make it possible and being very patient in the process because, I think a lot of times people are afraid to set dreams or to set goals because they don't want to fail. But it's like the only time we're failing is if we actually quit. So as long as you keep going and you adjust and you just get very cute and curious about what you need to do differently, then you're going to be okay. And so I just encourage everyone here to be patient and allow yourself to build wealth poco a poco.
I love that. Yeah, thank you so much. And now tell us before we leave, what if you have any upcoming projects, any work that you're doing right now that you want to let the listeners know about, and just what you got upcoming in the future for us.
Yeah. Okay. Well, everybody here, if you listen to this podcast episode, please let me know. Send me a DM on Instagram. I would love to hear from you and what you learned and what your takeaways were. Follow me on Instagram, LinkedIn, or Threads. You could also sign up for my email list. I send out an email every Tuesday and Thursday, and depending on your email settings, you might also get other emails. I also have a podcast, Wealth para Todos podcast. It just launched on February 23rd, the 5th year anniversary of how long I've had my Wealth para Todos account. Yes. So tune in, connect with me on those platforms for free 99. And if you want to invest in working with a money and self-care coach, then I would love to work with you. You could learn more about working with me one-on-one or joining Wealth para Todos Academy at my website. Just go to www.wealthparatodos.com.
Thank you so much. And I'll have everything in the show notes, including that podcast. That'll be a great resource for people to listen to. So thank you so much, Soledad, for being on the Leo podcast once again. It's always a pleasure to have you here, and maybe we'll bring you back a couple of years from now and see where you are with your home.
Yes, yes, I would love
and where you are
that.
in life, because it's always a journey. Hopefully in a better, less stressful environment.
I'm gonna just put it out there that maybe by the next time we talk, I'll have a second property too.
Yes, boom. You know what? We're making it happen. You're making it happen, but I'm gonna make the episode happen.
Yes, teamwork.
Yeah, exactly. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please share it with a family or a friend and rate it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It helps tremendously in order to bring more awareness and educational resources to our community. For more information and to stay up to date with what I'm doing, you can follow me on Instagram at Latinoamericaneo. And if you need more information and resources, you can visit my website, latinoamericaneo.org. I'm Kevin Munoz. This has been the Leo Podcast, and I'll see you next time.